Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine ancient maps, but not just of land, right? Maps of time and energy.
Kind of, yeah.
That's sort of what we're diving into today with Qimen Dunjia. It's this really quite sophisticated system from ancient China.
And what's amazing really is that it's still used
Yeah.
centuries later.
Exactly. People are still using it today for like forecasting things, making big decisions. It's like a time-tested way to get insights into what might happen.
It really points to something fundamental in its approach, doesn't it? Something about how it understands the way different things interact. It's clearly more than just tradition. It's a whole framework.
Yeah, a framework for navigating, well, life's complexities. And to help us explore it, we've gathered insights from several different books on Qimen and Dunjia.
Right.
Our goal here is really to give you a shortcut, a pathway into the core concepts and, how it's actually applied.
Makes sense.
Now, you might have heard of that idea, the trinity of luck, heaven, earth, and man luck like, destiny, environment, and our actions.
The classic three.
Qimen adds another layer, doesn't it? Spirit luck.
It does. It brings in this idea of broader universal energies, the sort of unseen influences.
And if you know other Chinese metaphysics systems like Bagua or the five elements,
You'll see familiar things. Heavenly stems, earthly branches, yin and yang, even the He, Tu, and Luo Shu concepts. They're all foundational.
but Qimen arranges them differently, more complexly.
In a way, yes. It weaves them together on a more intricate level, especially by integrating that spirit luck dimension. It aims for, let's say, a more nuanced perspective.
Okay, so let's get down to the practical side. How is this system actually used for forecasting? What are the core ideas?
Well, the sources are pretty clear. It didn't start as a general forecasting tool. Its origins are actually in military strategy, planning battles, that sort of thing.
For warfare. Interesting.
Yeah. But over time, it evolved. People started using it to anticipate, well, all sorts of things. Weather patterns, relationship outcomes, who might win a competition, financial decisions, career moves, even finding lost items or people. And interestingly, it's sometimes used in analyzing criminal cases, too.
That's a huge range. From war strategy to finding lost keys, almost. So how do you actually do a forecast?
The main way, and this covers like 90% of forecasting analysis according to our sources, is using Qimen hour charts.
Hour charts. Okay.
Think of an hour chart as a snapshot. It captures the specific energies of that particular moment in time.
Just for that hour?
Primarily, yes. Now, depending on the question, you might sometimes look at day, month, or even year charts for a bigger picture, but the hour chart is the go-to for immediate insights.
Got it. So you have this chart, this snapshot. How do you start reading it? Where is the key?
And that brings us to something really crucial. It's often the biggest hurdle for beginners, apparently, identifying the useful god.
The useful god, Yang Shen, is it?
That's the one, Yang Shen. Imagine it's the main reference point in the chart for whatever you're asking about.
Huh.
But here's the tricky part. It's not fixed. The useful god changes depending on the subject of your question.
So even in the exact same chart?
Exactly.
Yep.
Ask about your career is one useful god. Ask about a relationship in that same hour, it might be a completely different one.
Wow. And if you get it wrong...
Your whole forecast can be completely off. It's like trying to understand a piece of music by focusing only on the drums when the melodies and the violins.
That's a great analogy. You need to find the right instrument, the main character.
Precisely. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the sources mention there are 1,080 unique Qimen charts.
1,080.
Yep. And each one maps out energies in 8 different directions. And within each direction, you've got 4 layers of information.
4 layers.
Yeah. Heaven, it's like the cosmic timing. Earth, the physical environment. Man, human activities and relationships. And spirit, those subtle universal influences we talked about. It's deep.
1,080 charts, layers. Okay, that complexity is clear. But you said forecasting is just one part.
Absolutely. Forecasting is huge. But the sources also talk a lot about strategic execution. That sits alongside Feng Shui and destiny analysis as a major application.
Strategic execution. So that's less about predicting and more about doing.
Exactly. It's about actively choosing the best time, the best date, even the best specific activity to do to maximize your chances of getting the outcome you want.
So aligning your actions with the energy flows.
That's the idea. You're trying to ride the wave, so to speak, rather than swim against it.
How does Qimen help with that?
For this, practitioners use something called the 100 Qimen heavenly stem formations. These are specific combinations of the 10 heavenly stems.
Which we mentioned earlier.
Right. And these combinations give pretty direct practical guidance. They suggest potential strengths or maybe challenges for different kinds of activities, personal or professional.
Okay, can you give us some examples? How might these formations translate into advice?
Sure. Let's take business. The sources say if you have the combination of yi, that's yin wood, with jia, yang wood,
Yi plus Jia.
that's generally seen as really good for smooth negotiations. Things flow well.
Mm.
Even leisure time gets a look at. Yi plus ji yang wood.
Yeah.
Yang wood is seen as good for well-being, like spending time with family or groups, and also suggests you might make good quality purchases.
Okay, so it really covers a lot of daily life scenarios. Now, you also mentioned destiny analysis and feng shui. How does Qimen approach those?
Right. For destiny analysis, the idea is you take a person's birthday and time, and you convert that into their unique Qimen destiny chart.
Like a natal chart in astrology.
Sort of, but the focus is different. This chart is said to reveal insights into your fundamental soul destiny. Things like your spiritual nature, maybe guiding influences or guardian angels, and your innate talents. It's presented as distinct from, say, Bazi or purple stone methods.
And feng shui. How does Qimen apply there?
Qimen Feng Shui looks at a property, a house or office, and assesses whether the people living or working there are getting the right kind of qi flow, the vital energy, to help them reach their potential in different life areas.
Okay, checking the energy of the space.
Yes, but what's quite unique, according to the sources, is that it includes a kind of remote viewing. Practitioners can supposedly assess potential problems or identify key sources in a property without even visiting it physically.
Remote viewing. That's fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. One source really emphasized the connection to ancient military strategy, specifically Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Ah, yes, that's a classic link. Qimen Dunjia is often called the metaphysics of warcraft.
The metaphysics of warcraft.
Yeah. Famous historical strategists, Zhu Zhiliang, Liu Bowen, people like that, were apparently masters of it. And they were said to use it right alongside Sun Tzu's principles.
So combining strategic thinking with energetic insights.
That's the idea. You use Sun Tzu for the timeless principles of strategy, and Qimen for understanding the specific energetic landscape of that particular moment, that particular situation.
How might that have worked in practice? What are the parallels?
Well, the sources point out several. For offensive strategy, Qimen could potentially identify the most advantageous positions on the battlefield, energetically speaking, or even the best timing to try and form an alliance.
Like knowing the best time and place to attack or make a move?
Exactly. It aligns with Sun Tzu's focus on terrain. Then there's Sun Tzu's famous advice, know yourself, know your enemy. Qimen could potentially support this by helping analyze an opponent's underlying tendencies, maybe based on past actions mapped onto charts, or even by suggesting test scenarios to see how they react.
Oh, okay.
And Sun Tzu talks about attacking weak points using misdirection and secrecy. Qimen might help identify those vulnerabilities or the best way to conceal your own plans.
It sounds like an extra layer of intelligence gathering, almost supernatural intelligence.
In a way, the sources also connect Sun Tzu's idea of using both direct and indirect key tactics, plus the vital element of surprise, to Qimen's supposed ability to reveal the mood of the moment, the best time for a sudden, unexpected action.
Timing is everything.
It seems so.
Yeah.
There's even a conceptual link drawn between Sun Tzu's 9 types of battlegrounds and the 9 palaces in the Qimen chart. Each palace represents a direction, but also a kind of energetic battleground with its own characteristics.
9 palaces, 9 battlegrounds. Interesting parallel.
And finally, Sun Tzu stresses consolidating your gains after a successful move, making sure a tactical win fits into the bigger picture. This mirrors using Qimen not just for isolated actions, but for aligning everything with your overall strategic goals.
It's really striking how these ancient ideas about conflict can be mapped onto business, personal life, any competitive situation, really.
Absolutely. The principles seem quite universal.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of a Qimen chart itself. What are the basic building blocks?
Okay, fundamentally, you start with the 8 trigrams. These are probably familiar from the Yi Jing or I Ching.
Qian, Kun, Li, Kan, those ones.
These are Qian, Kun, Li, Kan, Zhen, Zhen, Dui, Sun. They represent core natural elements or concepts. Heaven, earth, fire, water, thunder, mountain, lake, wind.
And they relate to the chart structure?
Yes, they correspond to the 9 palaces, which form the basic 3x3 grid of the chart. Then you have the 10 heavenly stems.
We mentioned those for the formations, Jia, Yi, Bing.
Right. They're divided into auspicious Jia, Yi, Bing, Ding, Wu, and inauspicious Ji, Gang, Zhen, Ren, Gi. Think of them as different kinds of active forces or energies present at that time.
Do they have specific jobs in the chart?
Typically, yes. The heavenly stem associated with the hour of the chart usually represents the event or activity you're looking at.
Okay, the focus.
And the heavenly stem for the day often represents the person asking the question, or the self.
Got it. Hour is the event, day is the person. What else?
You also have the 12 earthly branches,
Yeah.
the zodiac animals, essentially.
Yeah.
They're linked to the months, seasons, and specific 2-hour periods of the day.
Okay, trigrams for space, stems and branches for time and energy types. Seems complex already.
It builds up. Another important concept is door compel. This happens when the element of one of the 8 doors clashes with the element of the palace it's currently sitting in.
A clash between the door and its location.
Exactly. And that clash can actually flip the expected meaning or effect of that door, sometimes completely reverse it.
So you need to know the doors themselves.
Yep.
What are they?
There are 8 doors.
And they have general meanings.
They do. Like the open door is generally good for starting things, launching a business, travel. The delusion door might be better for hiding, escaping, things needing secrecy. The death door is usually seen as inauspicious for most actions.
So the doors suggest different kinds of actions or situations.
Sort of phases or modes of action, yeah. Then you have the 9 stars.
Core components.
Yep. Heavenly grass, grain, destructor, assistant, bird, heart, pillar, ambassador, and hero. They also have associations. Heavenly grain, for instance, is often linked to sickness. Heavenly destructor might indicate sudden changes or activity. Heavenly ambassador is often associated with financial gain.
Stars adding another layer of influence.
And one more major layer, the 8 deities. Chief, surging snake, great moon, 9 earth, 9 heaven, grappling hook, 6 harmony, red phoenix. Actually, sources sometimes list 10, including black tortoises and white tiger as deities too. These add a sort of spiritual or subtle influence dimension.
Wow. Trigrams, stems, branches, doors, stars, deities, all interacting in one chart.
Exactly. And the specific combination of all these elements in a palace at a given time creates what's called a Qimen structure, or formation. This is where those 100 formations come from, specific patterns that indicate particular outcomes.
Like the ones you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, like green dragon returns. That's Jia stem with Bing stem in the same palace, generally very auspicious. Or leader flying palace, Jia stem with Ging stem, usually seen as quite inauspicious, suggesting conflict or obstacles.
It really is like reading a complex, multi-layered map of energy. Now, one of the most, unusual ideas I read about was evidential occurrences. What on earth are those?
The Qiying. Yes, they are pretty unique. The idea is that these are specific real-world things you might see or encounter.
Like random events.
Seemingly random, yes. But they're interpreted as signs that a particular Qimen formation in the chart you're looking at is actually activated. They're seen as confirmation that the forecast related to that formation is likely to happen.
So, the universe gives you a heads up. Tangible clues.
That's the concept, basically, like physical manifestations of the chart's energy.
Okay, that's wild. Give me some examples. What kind of occurrences are we talking about?
Okay, so let's say you have the rest door in the northeast palace of your chart.
Right.
An evidential occurrence, or Qiying for that, might be walking, say, 8 or 18 kilometers and then seeing a woman in dark clothes near some black soil. Or maybe encountering a civil servant wearing yellow or black.
And if you see that?
It's considered a good sign. It supposedly indicates potential for property gain, maybe from a woman, or getting a promotion.
Huh. Okay, what if it's not a good sign?
Good question. Let's take the same rest door, but this time it's in the South Palace. Here, an evidential occurrence might be walking 2 or 12 kilometers and seeing mourners dressed in white who are crying, and there's someone in green nearby. This specific sign is called divine sickness.
Divine sickness? Doesn't sound good.
It isn't. It's seen as a warning that any negative potential in the chart is amplified. You'd be advised to be cautious, especially with travel or lawsuits.
So these signs can be warnings too.
Definitely. Another example. The Heavenly Ambassador star is active during the monkey hour. That's 3 to 5 p.m. If during that time you experience a strong wind with a sudden downpour and you hear a drum sound and you see a monk or priest in yellow.
That specific combination.
Yes. That's said to indicate a financial downturn coming within about 7 days, often connected to news about a woman being harmed by fire.
Wow.
Very detailed.
Incredibly detailed. It's like a whole symbolic language layered onto reality.
It really is. There are signs for other hours, too. Rabbit hour, 5-7 a.m., seeing a woman with an umbrella or hearing a horn.
Okay.
Snake hour, 9-11 a.m., seeing a black cow pulling a carriage uphill while hearing bells that suggest property gain in 20 days.
Okay.
But then the dog hour, 7 to 9 p.m., sign woman in white, drums from the northwest, fallen trees injuring people in the northeast that's listed as very inauspicious, suggests illness, even plague and fatalities within 60 days.
Yikes. So it's a real mix of mundane and dramatic predictions tied to these specific sights and sounds.
It's a very elaborate system connecting these, seemingly random events to the chart's energy and potential futures.
Okay, finally, the sources briefly touch upon the 28 constellations. How do they fit in? Are they central to Qimen?
The 28 constellations, or Shi, they're basically divisions of the night sky used to track the moon's path. It forms a kind of lunar calendar system.
Right, like a lunar zodiac?
Sort of. They aren't always the main focus in day-to-day Qimen forecasting from what the sources suggest, but they add another layer of astrological context. Some practitioners definitely incorporate them. Each constellation has associated traits and influences.
Can you give us a taste of a few? What kind of traits are we talking about?
Sure. Let's see. The foundation to Pisces constellation is linked symbolically to the green dragon constellation, its chest and claws, and astronomically, it's observed near Libra around July. People associated with the Tail Way constellation are described as potentially stubborn, maybe argumentative, holding extreme views, sometimes not very popular socially. Those under the Well Jing might have a tough youth, but find more luck later in life. Their destiny often involves separation, and there's a lesson about learning to give.
Interesting. It really is like adding another layer of archetypal energy onto the Qimen chart. Well, this has been quite the journey into Qimen Dunjia.
It's a lot to take in.
Definitely. We've covered so much the basic ideas, how it's used for forecasting and strategic planning, those fascinating links to Sun Tzu.
Right, the Warcraft connection.
The actual components of a chart, the doors, stars, stems, and all that. And those really intriguing evidential occurrences.
Yin, yeah.
And even touched on the 28 constellations. It's clear this is an incredibly deep and complex system.
Absolutely. And honestly, what we've talked about today, it really just scratches the surface.
I believe it.
Each part, personal forecasting, business strategy, using Qimen, destiny analysis, feng shui, even the historical military uses, you could do a whole deep dive just on one of those areas. It's vast.
For sure. So maybe as you go about your day after listening, you could think about this ancient way of seeing time and energy. Could it offer a different perspective on things you encounter?
Yeah, maybe even pause and wonder.
Which, useful God, might be relevant to what you're trying to achieve right now. It certainly makes you think about that interplay, doesn't it, between these bigger, subtle energies and the choices we make every day.